Hey, what's up? This is episode 11 of One Tired Teacher. Today I have a second year teacher, Amanda, here sharing her beginning journeys of teaching in an alternative school, 6th through 12th grade. We touch on the challenges she faces in the classroom with meeting the needs of students who struggle with ADHD and anxiety. We can always learn from everyone, no matter their place on the path of education. And sometimes we can gather tips on what we should be focusing on in our professional development of new and seasoned teachers. I hope you'll join me. I made a suggestion to Amanda off the air about utilizing podcasting as a strategy to engage her students. She was excited about the possibilities. So I've included a freebie for you about helping students determine their audience. You can grab it at Trina Debery Teaching and Learning One Tired Teacher, episode 11. Make sure to grab it if podcasting might be a solution for your classroom. All right, let's get started.
Welcome to One Tired Teacher. And even though she may need a nap, this teacher is ready to wake up and speak her truth about the trials and treasures of teaching. Here she is, wide awake. Wait, she's not asleep right now, is she? She is awake, right? Okay. From Trina Debery Teaching and Learning, your host, Trina Debery.
Hey, so today I have second year teacher Amanda, who is teaching at an alternative school, like I said in the beginning, and she's here to share her teaching truths. We speak a little bit about her struggle that she faces daily with teaching children who are often feeling left behind or overlooked. The ESC population is high, with a large number of students diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety and other various learning challenges. Towards the end of the conversation, I asked Amanda what she would like to know more about on her professional learning path. Fortunately, she has had some PD on various topics, like how poverty impacts children at school. However, she hopes to learn more about how to best utilize strategies to help children work through learning barriers, such as anxiety and ADHD. Let's take a listen to a little bit of the conversation Amanda and I had.
Today I have Amanda with me, and I'm so glad to have you today. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you. All right, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Amanda?
My name is Amanda. I'm a teacher in Bradford County, Florida. I went back to school in my 30s for my degree and graduated in 2016 from UF with a degree in agricultural education. But there were no agriculture jobs available, so I got certified in English, 6th through 12, and this is my second year teaching. Last year I taught 8th grade English.
Wow. So it's just been a short amount of time. And by the way, go Gators.
Yes, go Gators. Thank you. And this year I'm teaching 6th through 12th graders alternative education, so students with behavioral issues in school or those that are on probation are with me.
What is it like to deal with the kids that are struggling and have they been like kicked out of their other, like a different school, and this is where they have been placed, or is this a choice that they have?
They get placed. They can't come by choice. It's basically a alternative to being expelled. They're kids that would normally have been expelled, but we have this program to help them stay in school.
Wow. So what is that like?
It's definitely different than teaching in a regular classroom because the students do their work on a computer program. Mm-hmm. Because I have a mixture of different grade levels, so it'd be kind of impossible to teach a lesson when they're all in different levels. I teach English and social studies. It's good. It's got a lot of good things. I have a lot more time because I have so many fewer students. Mm-hmm. So I have more time to work with them individually. But there's a lot of attitude, a lot of disrespect, as would be expected in a place like that.
Yes, that's difficult. How do you deal with that?
I'm learning. The beginning of the year, I was more of a stickler for the rules, and I learned to pick my battles to avoid fights, because when you nitpick small things with these kids, they blow up. A lot of times, most of them actually don't have a lot of support at home. And so when they live their life being the adult in their household and then come to school and get told what to do, they just don't like it.
Yeah, that's hard. That's a difficult transition, I'm sure, for them. And I know that I've read a lot about like what people call as junk behavior, and not like responding to that immediately, like kind of, yes, like you said, choosing your battles, letting some of those smaller things go, because it's sometimes is attention seeking, and actually giving them positive attention rather than just responding immediately to what some people call as junk behavior. So that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, definitely. And I've tried to spend more time getting to know the students as individuals, which helps. As I develop relationships with them, they definitely respond better to me.
Absolutely. I've talked about that on a previous show, and I'll link to that in the show notes about building rapport with students and how far that can go. And obviously you're in a very difficult situation, and this takes a lot more building rapport. Like there's a lot more that you have to do when you're dealing with kids that have basically been placed in a school where that's probably not their first choice, and they've
Oh, right, yeah.
continuously had issue after issue, I'm sure, to have gotten to that point. So there's a lot more to their why they're behaving that way. Okay, so
Definitely.
we were going to talk a little bit about anxiety and ADHD and how that has impacted schools and how it's probably especially affected these children. So what are your thoughts on the growing number of children who are diagnosed or suffer from ADHD or anxiety?
Um, it's a good and a bad thing. It might be a little bit overdiagnosed, but I think that the reason that the numbers are growing is because of improved diagnostic
The tools.
recognition. They're being recognized. Like, yeah, I have ADHD myself, and I went through school failing classes and just was allowed to fail. Nobody intervened. I didn't get any accommodations. Nobody tested me for anything. It wasn't until I was 20 in college that I got tested and diagnosed. And I hadn't even heard of ADHD. That was in 1999.
Mhm.
I saw flyers for the health center for mental health and, mentioning attention problems. And I was like, I can read this page in complete silence and have no idea what I just read. Like, what's wrong with me? So I went in and she mentioned ADHD. And when I went on the internet and searched it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. That's been me my entire life. Why didn't somebody do something?
Yeah.
So I'm sure I'm not alone as, not being diagnosed. But today a child like me would be diagnosed. So that's my explanation for the growing numbers. And I think it's a good thing because we can provide accommodations to these kids.
What do you notice about how they feel about learning?
It's hard to get through to some of them.
I think that's the saddest part, though, that they have along the way started to believe that lie about themselves, that they're not smart. And I don't think that I don't feel like we're doing a good enough job addressing that in kids and in school. And a lot of times we're putting kids in situations where they feel like a failure. So what they believe about themselves, about not feeling smart, is then becomes true, and it becomes their reality. So they are reminded constantly that they're not smart in that way. And that's really upsetting to me. Like, I feel strongly about that I think we need to do a better job making kids feel like they have value. And even if they are not so, like, what you would call school smart, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not smart. It means that they think in a different way, and we're not like celebrating all the different ways that people think. I mean, Albert Einstein wasn't school smart, and we know that he was a genius. And so that like is a trigger for me, because that makes me very upset that kids feel like they're not smart, because I think that leads to one problem after another.
Oh, for sure. They don't want to put forth an effort because they feel like they're just going to fail at it anyway. So why waste the effort when, I try to hand them tools, note-taking skills and things like that will help them succeed. They don't want to listen to that. They don't think it's going to work, and they think I'm wasting their time. And then they get angry and it becomes a worse problem than it should be.
Yeah, like a vicious cycle. Do you think that by the time they've gotten to you, where it almost feels too late, like if we had earlier interventions with those kinds of things, like we were, because I feel like in elementary school it's just gotten harder and harder. Like first grade is the new second grade, and second grade is the new third grade, and we keep pushing these standards on children, and we want it to be more rigorous in kindergarten, and we're talking about their college and career ready when they're in kindergarten. And I don't have a problem with the standards. I have an issue with kids like putting things on children where they're not developmentally ready, and where we're not as concerned about their emotional health. And I think if we were, then maybe you wouldn't see as many kids as you're seeing.
Oh, absolutely.
What about remediation?
It's tough when you have to do the remedial stuff with some of them because it just makes them feel stupid and they don't want to do it.
No.
it's tough sometimes. It takes a
Right.
lot of practice to get through and figure out, techniques for that.
Absolutely. And I know that you mentioned when we were emailing back and forth, you mentioned that your son struggled. How does that completely change your perspective when you watch your own child struggle?
My child is, he's really similar to me. He His ADHD manifests differently, though, than mine did. He hasn't really changed my perspective on ADHD as much as my students have. I have, we have a high ESE population, not surprisingly, in my school. And I've noticed how differently ADHD can manifest itself in different students. Like with my child, like I said, he gets his meds, he's fine. I have students that come to me, and I don't know if they're on medication or not. It's not my business. I don't ask. I don't get involved in that. But they really get in trouble. It manifests as outbursts and tantrums almost. Huge disruptions. The more you try to get them back where they're supposed to be, the harder they push. And, it's resulted in, one student being removed from school, and they now have to homeschool because they just couldn't keep it together in a classroom with other students. So I was surprised at how, huge a range of behaviors there can be under the one diagnosis of ADHD.
Do you think it's possible there's some other things going on as well, or do you feel like that's the answer?
I know that at least one student also has oppositional defiant disorder, which I was not very familiar with, but apparently, according to our mental health specialist at school, it does manifest as worse behavior when they're corrected. Like the more they're corrected, the worse they will behave. I guess the opposition, they're pushing back against the correction.
So they want to be allowed more choices.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they want choices that just aren't safe to let them make.
Yes. That's hard. Do you think that sometimes the tantrums or the outbursts are an avoidance to what they have to do?
For sure. There's one specific student that I really think uses her outbursts as a way to get out of class so that she doesn't have to struggle through the materials. Because I've sat down and worked one-on-one with her, and she just would act like she didn't know anything when I know she knew the answers. I was asking simple questions, and she just, I don't know, just to get out of doing it. Because I guess, 13, 14 years of, not knowing she just can't handle it anymore.
Yeah, that we were going to discuss was anxiety. And how are you seeing that in the class, that playing out in the classroom?
It's tough to know because the kids don't tell me they're feeling anxious. Last year I did have one student, asked to go to the clinic because she was having an anxiety attack. And of course I let her go. It often manifests itself in disruptive and almost aggressive behaviors. I think manifests as snapping at others. A lot of the disrespect I think that I get could be,
anxiety.
They don't want to answer my questions, so they get rude and nasty to get me to leave them alone.
Yeah. What do you think about having teaching them more about to being able to name their own feelings? What are your thoughts on that?
We have mental health counselors that come once a week and meet with them to just kind of talk about, what are your goals and what have you been doing? And, are you feeling any pressure to do this? Just started recently.
Absolutely. I would hope that would be something that would be beneficial to them, because that can really make a huge difference. What about increasing professional development around those kind of topics? I know if teachers, again, had those tools in their toolbox, then they would know how to help kids talk about their feelings, deal with their feelings, what make a different choice when the certain feeling came up. And I don't feel I agree, in my education program and even in my professional development in the last 20 years, it wasn't a topic that we talked about, but we're seeing so much behavior issues, even in elementary school. And I know in middle school, high school, fights, things like that, we're seeing this. Why are we not having more professional development around like trauma, like how, because kids that have gone through trauma, that manifests in some serious behavior issues. And maybe we need more information on how to deal with anxiety and how to deal with trauma, trauma-informed care. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's definitely a need. It's not something that I've experienced yet in my couple of years of teaching. We did do a PD this year that was understanding poverty, which was really eye-opening and informative to me. That was seeing, how the poverty affects the decision-making of these kids helped a lot me understand why they did the things they did.
Yes, so that's good. That's a place to start. It sounds like they're like starting with something, which is good. Because I think if we understand more of where a child is coming from, I think we have a better chance at helping them.
Right, because if they're not sure when they're going to eat next, it's almost impossible for them to worry about learning, this novel that we're reading or whatever. So finding ways around that is something I'm still working on, but it was eye-opening to see, how kids in poverty think a lot of the time.
Yeah, absolutely, because their basic survival needs are not being met. So if their basic survival needs aren't being met, they're unable to concentrate on anything else. And if they already have, ADHD and anxiety and all the rest of these things, if those kind of things are happening to them, or they're surviving, their parents are going through a divorce, or they're surviving, domestic violence in their home, that's where your brain is. Your brain is unable to take on any more information. And so it makes sense that they're wanting to avoid that in the classroom, because what they have going on in their mind is at the forefront, which makes sense.
Right, which leads into another symptom of anxiety is the inability to concentrate. And, that can be ADHD or anxiety. But in the case of anxiety, it's because they have other worries on their mind. That's why they can't concentrate on, the assignment or the lecture or the notes or whatever they're supposed to be concentrating on. So
what would you like to know more information on? Since you've been doing this for a pretty limited amount of time, what would you like to see happen as like your first steps and what you would like to know?
So I definitely would like to have more skills on how to get through to kids because even having ADHD myself, I was raised in a different time. I didn't have accommodations. It was do it or fail. And so getting past that mentality is tough for me. Learning more ways to be patient and accommodating without coddling them. I don't like coddling kids or giving them excuses for their behavior. So I definitely want to find a way to balance that.
Absolutely. And because if we figure out the why they're behaving that way, then maybe we can help them understand that themselves so that they can help themselves. Because ultimately, you're right, they're going to go off into the world and they're not going to have some of these things. And we want them to be able to be productive citizens and be able to, to help themselves. Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for joining me today. And I really appreciate this conversation and getting kind of a glimpse into an alternative route for students, and hoping that we can kind of catch them before they completely fall.
Definitely. That's our goal at the school I'm at. But thank you so much for having me on.
And thank you for hanging around. We all have different experiences, but I love that we can still learn from one another. Next week, we're going to dive deeper into how teachers can help children who struggle with anxiety and ADHD. I have a brilliant school psychologist coming to share her wisdom. You won't want to miss it. Leave a comment and let me know how you're working through your challenges in your classroom. Okay, until next time, this one tired teacher is ready for a snooze. Take care and sleep tight.